Hello guys, welcome to uneasy TV.
Our story starts with a man, Ryōta, playing a game. He achieves rank 1 in Japan and is suddenly challenged by the rank 2 on the planet. He explains that this game is the most popular game in the world, a battle royale where they only use bombs to bin Laden players. He says that in real life he is a loser, but in the world of Btooom he is the best player and even got married to a player using a female character. At home, Ryōta argues with his mom for writing him a job application to go work at a grocery store and storms away. Outside he finds 2 men approaching him and they knock him out. He awakens in a forest hanging from a tree. He falls down and realizes he can't remember anything after leaving home. He checks his phone, but of course there's no signal. He realizes that there is a strange glass in his hand and then goes over to his bags where he finds a strange container. He opens it and finds a timer that explodes when it reaches 0. He grabs his bags and runs away from the boomers. Ryōta sees someone walking towards him and calls to him. The stranger replies with a boomer that explodes on contact and attempts to put Ryōta into a pack. Ryōta runs away from the man, but he somehow finds him. He decides to fight back and throws one of his timers at him, but it didn't go off. He realizes that he needs to press the switch and throws another, but he misses and explodes in the water. He corners the man, then questions him about their situation. The man laughs and throws an impact boomer at him. Ryōta survives this through plot armor and retreats. He tries to surrender, but the man doesn't take prisoners. His gem begins to glow and he realizes that it's a radar that shows everyone's locations. He runs away, then yeets himself off a cliff. The man stands over waiting for him to surface, but a timer explodes at his feet, sending him to heaven. Ryōta realizes that his KD went up for the first time, so he vomits up all he has eaten on the beach. The man's loot box washes up on the shore and Ryōta takes all the resources for himself. While walking through the forest, Ryōta finds a woman, Himiko, bathing at a waterfall. He realizes that she has a lot of food, but she runs away into the forest. Ryōta uses his radar to follow after her. He sees a bush moving and finds a man releasing his demons. The man tells him that they were brought here on a plane. The admin of the battle royale comes on the screen and tells them that they have to unalive 7 people with boomers in order to get off the island. Ryōta steps up and tells the developer he's insane, then the security guards comes and charges his brain. Everybody on the plane is then made to fly down to the island. Ryōta sits now realizing that he must send 6 more people to Jesus. The big man comes over and asks if Ryōta wants to form a party with him. He tells the big man that instead of offing 7 they would have to instead massacre 14 people. The big man protests that he will never bin Laden anyone and will find another way to get off the island. Ryōta agrees to form a party with the man. They hear a plane flying over and see some airdrops. Ryōta runs to one, but he finds that a woman got there before him. She runs to the box and gets an explosive surprise. Ryōta watches as another man walks up, then loots everything from her box. The big man catches up and sees what happened. Ryōta shows him another box but says it's dangerous to go for it. The big man says they need food to survive in order to fight off any enemies that try to end the story. They run towards the drop and find a boy standing beside someone he just smoked. The boy tells them it's survival of the fittest in the trenches. They decide that they don't want the smoke and pulls out the Joestar's secret technique, but the boy uses his radar to follow them. The big man suddenly falls over a branch and sprains his leg. He tells Ryōta to leave him behind, but he decides to lead the boy away instead. Ryōta scans and finds the boy slowly approaching. He runs at the little one and realizes that they both use the same tactic. He recognizes that the little one is a Btooom player and begins to run away. The gremlin throws a bomb that tracks Ryōta and sticks to his bag. He throws it in the air and a black hole erupts that disintegrates everything around it. Ryōta, seeing how broken that boomer is, hides behind a boulder. The boy with the OP weapon calls him a loser and taunts him. Ryōta gives away his location and hits his head on a rock. He begins to see the world as a game and decides that he must win. The boy throws a bomb at him, but he blocks it with an empty container. He scans for Ryōta but finds nothing. A timer hit him directly, blowing him away. He realizes that Ryōta has been canceling his radar with his own. Ryōta ambushes him and gets a direct hit with an impact exploder, but the boy's plot armor is thick and he survives. Ryōta brings back all the gremlins' loots and they have a meal. The big man thanks him for everything and begins crying. A fat man with his pants down floats downstream. Ryōta decides to investigate. He runs through the forest and finds a body by a tree. He nearly throws up, but he keeps it down. He uses his radar and sees Himiko standing on the side of a cliff. She throws a boomer that releases gas. Ryōta runs outside the forest and sees Himiko waiting for him. He surrenders and tells her that he just wants to get off the island, then invite her to his party. She defuses the bomb and he begins walking toward her. She screams that all men are her enemies and tries to send him to protagonist Jesus. He charges at her, but she suddenly pulls out a stun gun. He styles on her with ultra instinct, then kicks her arm, causing her to charge herself and pass out. He takes off all her bags, but the horny begins to take over. He is almost defeated, but he comes to his senses and fights his inner demons. Himiko wakes up seeing that Ryōta is carrying her. She puts her hand in her pocket and takes out a timer. Ryōta stops it with 1 second to spare and realizes that she was really going to give them a dramatic finish. The big man gives her coffee and she begins crying. He tells her that they are planning to leave the island without ending everyone. She tells them that she was popular in Japan. Himiko says to her friend that she played Btooom with one of the highest ranked players. One day her friends gets a letter that allows them to get rid of one person they hate. Later on, Himiko introduces her friends to a famous band to hang out, but she decides to go home and meet with them later. She arrives at the house of the band members and she finds that all her friends have been clapped by all of them. The leader says they're gonna have fun, but Himiko throws hands and runs away. She hears her best friend screaming in a corner. She falls on the floor and sees her best friend being dragged away. They try to grab her legs, but she knows how to use them. She gets up and abandons her friends in order to escape. A few days later, her friend confronts her in the rain and reveals that they chose her to disappear in the letter, instead of the band members who clapped them. When she arrived on the island, Himiko found herself with timers, but no one was around and she decides to rest. 3 men wake her up and invite her to their party. They use the boomers to catch fish and eat around a fire. One of the men says he wants to play the game and leave, but another stands up and says he will never play the game how the developers want them to. The man reaches for his boomers, but the other takes Himiko for a meat shield. She grabs her taser and he releases her. EDP says to stop any further violence, they should put their weapon in the same place and pick someone to watch over them. They decide Himiko should watch the weapons and throw them into a pile. They see an airdrop coming down. They find food inside and have a feast. A team member sees them and says that they should conserve the food and not just eat it all, but he suddenly begins choking on a knife. EDP wakes up Himiko in the night and they decide to escape. He scans the area and finds the hunter chasing them. He confronts them at the bridge, but EDP throws a gasser and runs away. He tells her that they should prepare to fight, but she says that she doesn't want to up her KD. EDP grabs her, but she punches him in the face. He walks towards her, but she hits him with the stunner and puts him down. She sits in a corner, but EDP finds her. She tries to run, but he tackles her to the floor. He opens the box and finds some cupcakes. He begins tasting them, then decides he wants some cookies too. She takes out a bomb. He runs away scared, but he wasn't fast enough and gets cancelled from life. She stands at a waterfall wiping all the pedo away, and that's when she first met Ryōta. Himiko tells them that the reason everyone ended up on the island is that they did something to make someone hate them. Ryōta realizes that the person who condemned him to this hell was his mom. They hear something moving in the forest. Komodo dragons come out of the bushes. Ryōta angers PETA, then throws a boomer at them, but it doesn't explode because the little one is still alive, so they are not his. The big man gets bitten when Ryōta finally finds his impactors and saves them. They walk through the water and the big man thanks him for saving him again. Ryōta asks why he keeps thanking him. He says that he is scared because he wouldn't survive without him. They hear the mutated lizards getting closer. The big man runs away with all their supplies. Ryōta tries to scan for him but finds nothing. Ryōta realizes that he could have left with all their loot. A walking death trap appears, but a drone comes by and sends the creature to lizard heaven. The big man walks outside the woods. Ryōta apologizes for doubting him, but he doesn't mind. They continue walking through the forest with Godzilla's offspring close behind. They climb a ladder, but it breaks and they all come tumbling down. The big man decides to hold off the animals with explosions. Ryōta realizes that he can't lift Himiko on the ladder. He climbs it himself and throws a gas bombs to genocide the creatures. The big man begins feeling dizzy and falls to the floor holding his leg. They pour antibiotics on his wound, but he fights back in pain. Ryōta tells Himiko to hold him down, but she doesn't want to touch a man. He shouts at her, then she starts holding him down until he stops screaming. In the morning, Ryōta asks Himiko how many people she has smoked. She begins crying and says she only smoked those who tried to put her in a pack first. A sonar suddenly passes by them and they realize someone is close. Ryōta gets up and says he will be the distraction. He stands in the middle of the forest and scans. The hunter suddenly attacks him with a knife. Ryōta dodges and jumps off a cliff. Ryōta tells the man they don't have to fight. A timer falls at his feet, revealing the hunter has a partner. They take his loot and prepares to end him, but Ryōta hits him with the stunner and pulls a Joseph. He heads back to his base. They wonder why the enemies aren't using their radar, but Himiko says they're probably tracking his footsteps. The hunter finds them. He tells Himiko that he's gonna take back all the loot she took. Ryōta pulls the stun gun on him. He tells Ryōta that he needs to end them in order to leave the island. Ryōta says that there must be a way to leave because they couldn't have thought about everything. The hunter tries to poke him, but the big man blocks with his fingers. Ryōta takes the chance to tackle him, but he gets kicked off a cliff. Ryōta wakes up on a tree branch and finds the big man alone with all their loot gone. Ryōta finds Himiko's phone and finds out that she was his wife from Btooom. He decides to find her, but the big man begs him to stay with him. Ryōta says he will be back soon and heads out. He scans the enemy base and Himiko scans back. He sneaks into their home and finds a door that was trapped. He walks in and finds her tied to the bed. He tells her that she was his wife from the game, but she denies it and says it wasn't her. They get scanned and the enemies begin chasing them. The skinny one follows after Ryōta, but he gets an expected surprise. The hunter captures Himiko and tells Ryōta that he's going to end her unless he comes out. He runs for the knife and finds a foot waiting for him. He disarms Ryōta and pins him to the floor. Himiko jumps on him and places a gasser on his strap. They run away as the gas catches up. Ryōta jumps up the ceiling, then pulls up Himiko, but the hunter grabs her leg. He tosses a timer down the hole, defeating him. They decide to use the building as a base for the night. Ryōta says he's gonna sleep in another room, but Himiko tells him she doesn't want to be alone. She draws a line with bags, then they lie down and rest. Himiko wakes up and finds a scary woman standing over her. Ryōta tries to scan for the intruder, but he doesn't pick up on anyone. He investigates the area and finds a room with supplies in it. A woman suddenly appears behind him, but he knocks her out. He realizes that she has been disarmed, so she doesn't show up on the scanner. Ryōta goes to Himiko and tells her what he found. The woman tells her that she has been living in the building for 6 months. She says that when she came to the island, she teamed up with another player to collect 14 chips so they can both leave, but when they collected 6 chips, the man betrayed her and then took her chip away, leaving her on the island to pass. Himiko tells Ryōta the story. He decides that their plan will be to collect 7 chips and call the helicopter in order to hijack it and get back to Japan. Ryōta comes back to the big man and finds a familiar-looking doctor taking care of him. He tells them that he doesn't plan to take part in the game. The big man vouches for him and they accept him into the group. Ryōta asks to see his boomers. They are revealed to be mines that are activated by a remote. He reveals that they have 3 chips, and this suspiciously gets the doctor really interested in joining their group. They chase after an airdrop. Ryōta scans and finds 6 other players in the area. He looks over and sees Shades running for it. They both jump for the box and fall off the cliff, then throw boomers at each other. The doctor grabs the bag, but it won't release from the parachute. Shades throw a gasser at him. He leaves the box behind and blows up the strap with his boom maker. Ryōta grabs the bag and begins running. Fire bombs suddenly begin surrounding him. Shades jump in the fire and steal the box before jumping into the water. Ryōta follows him off the cliff. He climbs out of the water and sees a man walking outside the jungle. The man sees the case and heads for it. He picks up the case and gets an explosive surprise. Shades then walk from the forest to take his loot. Ryōta confronts him and tells him to drop his weapons. He walks to the man's loot boxes, but Shades activates some mines and blow him up, but Ryōta was one step ahead and only pretended to walk next to the cases. He throws an impactor at Shades, but he misses. Shades then takes a fire starter from a loot box and throw it at Ryōta, but he dodges it by jumping in the water. The serial killer kid reveals that he was watching the fight and took all of the boomers when no one was looking. Ryōta lies on the beach, realizing that everyone robbed his ass. The doctor and Himiko finds him. They head back to their base. The doctor says that the big man is going to end soon. Himiko tells Ryōta that the one-armed lady had medicine. They tell the doctor and decide to head there. Himiko tells Ryōta that she doesn't trust the doctor. He tells her to survive, they have to be more trusting of people. They arrive at the building and decide to split up and search for the medicines. Ryōta finds the doctor in the medicine cabinet. The doctor says that he can trust him and gives him a case to hold. Himiko runs towards Ryōta and tells him that there is a boomer inside the trunk. The doctor activates the bomb, surely killing Ryōta. The doctor walks toward Himiko. The one-armed woman comes behind him and gets her revenge by stabbing him in the back. They run away from him, but he has planted mines all over the building, so they go outside. The man applauds the woman for surviving. She throws bombs at him and he runs away. She chases him and tanks an explosion straight to the face. The doctor throws a bomb at Himiko, but it didn't activate. He sees Ryōta walking from the shadows. The doctor asks how he survived, and he revealed that he jumped inside a very convenient hole in order to survive. He tells Himiko that he will no longer show mercy to his opponent, then proceeds to tell the doctor to surrender and watch as he runs away. Ryōta chases after the man who has traps all over the building. The doctor activates one of his traps, but Ryōta says he moved his trap to a more convenient location and makes him blow himself up. The one-armed woman shows up without a scratch and tries to put an end to the doctor, but she can't bring herself to do it. They walk back to their base through the fog. A drone suddenly appears and begins chasing Ryōta. He knocks it away with a stick before it hits him. He calls for the big man when another appears at his foot and explodes, proving that he is not actually boom-proof. He scans the area, but he doesn't find him. Another tracker approaches them. Himiko grabs the bomb and disarms it. She says she will protect him, and he realizes that she is indeed his wife from Btooom. Big man sends another tracker at Himiko, but this time Ryōta grabs it and disarms it. Ryōta scans and finds him running away. He chases after the big man with a metal rod. The big man prepares to send his last bomb at Ryōta, but he can't bring himself to do it. Lizards appear behind him. He spends his last moments apologizing before following the light. They find his loot box and begin to cry. Himiko goes to him and asks if he wants to go back home. He tells her he wants to. She shows him 3 gems and tells him that if he ends her he will have enough gems to leave. He refuses to send her to heaven. He goes over to her preparing to give pleasure, but he cock-blocks himself. Himiko gets up confused. He tells her that he doesn't want to enter her cookie jar until they make it off the island. They spend the night cuddling, now only needing 8 more gems in order to go back home. That will be all for today. Like the video if you liked the video, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching and comment below how many Easter eggs you found.